Good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be here. I've been doing this for 28 years. I have been working with electric cooperatives for about 24 or 25 years. And I used to come to Ohio quite a bit. I can't remember exactly when I started here. I think it was maybe 20 years ago, maybe the late 1900s. Does anybody remember Steve Oden? Steve Oden. He was the first guy that brought me here, and we used to meet at the Crown Plaza just around the office from the OEC building. And it's been a few years since I've been here. I'm excited to come back because I have a brand new keynote speech today that I'm going to share with you. And I haven't written a new keynote speech in years before last fall. I wrote a book about 9 years ago, called Some Things Never Change, and did a keynote speech on that, and haven't done one since. And I love, does anybody here have audible.com? I love audible.com because it gives you a chance to listen to books if you don't have the time to read the books. And about 4 years ago, I listened to a book titled The Power of Habit, Why We Do the Things We Do. The Power of Habit, Why We Do the Things We Do. And the author's name is Charles Duhigg. And I've always been a fan of reading and habits and overcoming habits and challenges. But in that book, on chapter 5, and this happened when I was traveling, listening to an audiobook, traveling to do a speaking event in Indiana, chapter 5 is called Willpower, the Key to Success, the title of this keynote speech. Willpower, the Key to Success. It just made it, I don't know, you hear things in the past and then you hear them again down the road and all of a sudden it makes sense. A gentleman told me a long time ago, 30 or 40 years ago, he said, a focal point in a person's life comes when opportunity and preparedness meet. Sometimes you hear things that doesn't make sense, and a few years later you hear something that makes complete sense. And I thought, what a great opportunity for a speech to get people to overcome some of the challenges they have with willpower. Now, here's what I want to do before I start this presentation. Does anybody here play tennis? Last fall, I used to play tennis for a long time, 30 years before my knees finally went out, and I like to watch the big events. Last fall was the U.S. Open in New York City. Novak Djokovic won the event. He's won 24 majors. He's probably the greatest male tennis player of all times. I was watching the interview after his semifinal match that he had with a young man, and see if I can get this up.
Congratulations on an amazing performance. It seems like every time we're talking to you, there's some crazy stat that you're setting in historical fashion, and there's one I got to ask you about. Today, it makes you 30-1 against players in their home slam. What is it about this environment that allows you to thrive?
I mean, first of all, again, acknowledging the crowd and the atmosphere. You guys were amazing. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate your support for both players. Look, these are kind of matches and occasions that I still thrive on. That still get me going. You know, inspire me to wake up every day trying to work as hard as the young guys. Grand Slams are the ones that count the most in our sport. Obviously, they're the ones that motivate me the most to be able to play my best tennis, perform my best tennis. I knew, you know, prior to quarterfinals and semifinals, I'm going to play an American player. Obviously, never easy. You know, got to hold the nerves and try to be composed, you know, in the moments that matter. Today, you know, things were going really, really smoothly for me, and then he broke back, and it was really anybody's game in the end of the third set. Obviously, it was very loud in this place with the roof closed, and but you know, this is kind of an atmosphere that we all like to play in. So I'm really, really pleased with this win today.
You talked about hard work, Novak. This crowd loves you too. You talked about hard work. Can you give us a glimpse into what it takes in terms of your discipline to be still getting better at this age?
Well, discipline is everything. I think it's a combination of, you know, discipline, willpower, you know, clarity of what you really want to do, what your short-term goal, long-term goals are. You know, I've been blessed to really play this sport for so many years, and I've achieved a lot. But I still feel I have something in my legs left. You know, I still feel I have something to give to the sport.
So he said discipline, willpower, and goals. I've been doing this for 28 years. It's amazing to me how many people want to learn and do something new, but they lack the desire to stick with it. I mean, think about the things in our lives that you need willpower for. I mean, I could name off a few. I'm sure you could too. The one that sticks out in my mind is dieting. Anybody ever tried to diet before? I've gained and lost hundreds of pounds in my life, and my doctor said, I've got a diet that works for you every time, guaranteed if you want to do it. And I said, what is it? And he said, burn more calories than you eat, which wasn't what I was looking for. Some people do it for exercise. Has anybody ever stopped smoking in this room before? I smoked for 20 years. I used to stop a lot. I stopped on and off all the time, every time I got sick. I talked to some people this one guy said, haven't had a cigarette for 5 years. And I said, how long has it been since you wanted a cigarette? He said about 30 minutes. Now, mine took 6 months to overcome it, and I've heard different things about habits. I've heard 21 days, 31 days, 28 days, 45 days to break a habit, but it's that mental capacity that you have to stick with something. And they said the key to success, and there's different kinds of success, is willpower, which means taking your habits and making them so permanent that you don't have to muster willpower all the time. It's something that you can do when you need it. Willpower is something, you don't start something with willpower. You start something with inspiration and motivation, but willpower is what keeps you going. It could be overcoming procrastination. It might be starting a project at work. It might be doing something around your house. But it's the key in how do you make it happen. And what I've put together today is just some points that I think you'll see that will be helpful for you. The definition of willpower here, if you see it, the capacity to override an unwanted thought, feeling, or impulse, the ability to employ a cool cognitive system of behavior, not hot emotion. But the one I like the most is the bottom one, the conscious, effortful regulation of the self by the self. It's to do the things you know you need to do to become successful. There was a study done in this book. Mr. Duhigg talked about some studies they did with children to show how that willpower and self-discipline can go with you through life. They took 4-year-olds, a room of 4-year-olds, and put a bunch of marshmallows on the table and said, you can have 1 marshmallow right now, but if you wait 15 minutes, you can have 2. And about 30% or 40% of the children in that room took 1 marshmallow right away. The other 50 or 60% waited 15 minutes to have 2 marshmallows. And I don't know how they did this, but they studied those children through high school and found that those children that waited to take the marshmallows to have 2 later on were better at studying, their grades were better, their SAT scores were better, and they found them even through life. People that are self-disciplined can accomplish more by being more focused on what the outcome is going to be rather than having satisfaction right now. My wife is a psychiatric nurse, and when she was in college, she graduated magna cum laude, and she went and had fun and partied at night with her friends, but after class, every day after class, she went straight to the library and did all her studying so she could go out later and have fun and has succeeded in life because of it. So what I've put together for you this morning is just a few steps for you to consider for yourself that you can actually develop some of this within yourself. And I mentioned success. The definition of success in the dictionary is, by Webster's Dictionary, is the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or dream. Now, there's different kinds of success that you might want in life. It might be financial success. It might be family success. It might be good health. Everybody has different views of what success is, but it's going to take hard work to get there. So the first thing I want to show you in this right here is it starts with your self-esteem. Self-esteem. Now, there is, I met Jack Canfield. He's the co-author of all the Chicken Soup for the Soul. Does anybody ever read Chicken Soup for the Soul books? See, there's Chicken Soup for everything nowadays. But I met the guy in 2009. I'm going to end up with a story about this today, which is kind of amazing. But he's told me something I'll never forget in 2009. He said that 2/3 of the people in the American workforce today suffer from low self-esteem. 2/3. Does that sound high? That sounded high to me. Some people think it's not high enough. I talked to a lady, she said, I think it's too high. I said, well, what do you think it is? She said, I don't know, maybe half. That's still half of all the people you talk to suffer from low self-esteem. So ever since then, I've been talking about this when I speak, to how to get people on course to build themselves up. To really work on your willpower, to really work on your self-discipline, you have to actually believe in yourself. And there's things that you can do, and I've talked about this for years. The first one, when it says massage the brain, now this is something important. This is why I read and listen to so many books. You have to find a way to control what's in your head. There's so much negative on TV out there. There's so much negative that people hear all the time. The very first positive book I ever read was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. And he said it takes four things positive in your brain to overcome one negative thing you hear. You're the same person in the future that you are today, except for four things: what you read, what you listen to, what you watch, and the people you hang around. You have to learn to control what you're putting in your head, and every day I think it's important to put something positive in there, whether it's reading something, listening to something, talking to somebody that's positive, to try to keep yourself strong. The second one is to be a positive person. Have you ever worked with a negative person before? You said good morning to them, and they said, what's good about it? Thank God it's Friday. They're miserable every day. That's a repelling personality style. If you have a positive personality style, that means you're going to have more of an attractive personality style. You don't need to be ridiculous about it. How are you doing today? I'm fantastic. You don't need to go that far. But I'm saying, how are you doing today? Good morning. What should you say back? Good morning. It's not that big a deal, but just trying to be positive. The third thing, and I mentioned this earlier, is be careful who you hang with. I think it's important. This is something else Jack Canfield said to me. He said, you're an average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. If I had a teenager, I would teach him that. You're an average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. He also said your income is an average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. But I've never figured out how to ask people how much they make. And then the last one, and this is the most important one in my view, is to become more of a giver than a taker. Be more of a giver than a taker. There's some different things that happen in this. There was a movie out in 1988 with Bill Murray. It was called Scrooge. You might have seen it before. It's kind of a takeoff on the Christmas Carol, the play with Ebenezer Scrooge. He was a TV producer, made people work on Christmas Eve, and he was mean. And he saw the past, present, and future, and was finally so thankful to still be alive when he saw the future, and he came back out to the studio. He looked at everybody in the TV audience, and he said, I finally understand what the holiday season is all about. For a few hours a year, we finally become the people that we wish we always were. We give a little bit more, we share a little bit more, we're nicer to people. And I think every time you do something without looking for something in return, I think you feel better about yourself afterwards. If you give somebody a Christmas present or any kind of a present, have you ever given somebody a present and you're so excited for them to open the present, you don't even care if you get anything, you just want to see the look on their face? That's something that makes you feel really good. Years ago, Liberty Mutual Life Insurance, they've got these TV commercials now with people standing in front of the Statue of Liberty, but about 8 years ago, I'm pretty sure it was that long ago, it was before the 2016 election, they had a series of commercials called Do the Right Thing. And I loved watching those because of the feeling that it gave me. The one I'm thinking about had a lady at a bus stop stopped a pizza guy from walking out in front of a bus. The bus driver saw that, and he helped somebody off with their luggage. And somebody saw him do that, so they helped somebody with their luggage at the airport. And a person saw somebody do it at the airport, and this lady went to rake her leaves. So she saw her elderly neighbor had more leaves than she did, so she went over and helped him rake his leaves. And then a guy was in the street and saw her do that, and the next scene is him cleaning up a spill on the break room floor. Just doing something for somebody else makes you feel good. I was driving from a seminar in New York City down the New Jersey Turnpike, I-95. They don't have exits there. They have Oasis that you go to, all these places to eat and restrooms. And I stopped to use the restroom. I had my jacket off. I had my tie pulled down. I walked to the restroom and came out. And there was a guy about from me to that door right over there watching me as I walked towards the door. He was holding the door open. I walked with my head down, looked up. He's still looking at me. And I get there. I get about 10 feet away, and I said, "Are you holding that door open for me?" And he said, "I'll tell you, brother, anybody who's wearing a tie this time of day needs some help." But you know, the thing that got me about that is that was more than 10 years ago, and I'm still telling that story. Things that people do for somebody else. There's multiple stories of Starbucks in the drive-thru that you go through the drive-thru, and the person in the drive-thru pays for the person behind them because they're in a good mood. I mean, have you ever paid for somebody behind you just at a toll booth or something like that one time? I guess toll booth now would be kind of creepy. They'd probably try to run you down. But the next guy said, "Well," he said, "your order's already paid for." He said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, the guy in front of you paid for it." He said, "Well, how much is the guy behind me?" And he gave him the price of that one. He said, "Well, I'm going to pay for his." It took, the traffic went around the block 1.5 times, and it took an hour and a half to get that all taken care of because of the confusion just by people being nice. It's that feeling you get by doing something for somebody else. It's your self-esteem. It's your confidence level. It's being a positive person. It's controlling what you let into your head. It's being careful who you hang with. The more you are self-confident, the more you believe in yourself to do some of these things, which really helps your willpower. The other thing I want to tell you is this right here. The drivers of willpower is your environment. If you're on a diet, you ever know at the cash register when you check out, they have all these chocolates and potato chips there at the very last second for you to buy? You need to stay away from things like that if you're on a diet. Can you go out and eat at a restaurant if you're on a diet? Probably not. It's hard to eat healthy food when you go out. You need to stay away from things that are going to make you weak. Sleep deprivation. The more tired you are, the less likely you are to have the willpower to be able to get the things done that you want to get done. You know, willpower is something, if you use a lot of it at work to get things done, you probably aren't going to have a lot of it at night to do the things that you really want to do. For example, if you're working really hard at work, some of you have probably experienced this, stressed out when you come home, emails, meetings, or whatever it is, you got it all done, and you're on a diet, and you get home, do you feel like sticking on that diet? No, people usually get weak and get off the diet because they used all their willpower up in another area. It's not always with you all the time. It comes and it goes. You just need to know how to manufacture it when you really need it. And then this one right here, good habits. And let me ask you this. With habits, I said it was 21 days. When I stopped smoking, I had tried a million times. I wasn't a heavy smoker, but I went up from 18 to 38 years old. I smoked about a half a pack a day. And I wanted to stop. My parents told me when I was young, don't do it. And I said, yeah, okay, whatever. And I did it anyway, of course. I heard 21 days. Can't remember who it was. And I said, I can do this, 21 days. I took it an hour at a time, a half a day at a time. I made it through a half a day. I made it through a whole day. It was hard because of just the habit of smoking cigarettes. I made it through 2 days. I made it for a week, and it was hard, man. It was hard. I did the same thing, made it for 2 weeks, then made it for 3 weeks, 21 days. 21 days. And I'll tell you something. I wanted a cigarette just as bad that day as I did the day I started. I remember I was catering. I used to be a caterer. When I lived on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, I used to cater. I remember cleaning up that night, the banquet, like last night, they had tables out, and there was a pack of cigarettes on the table. And I opened the pack. There's 4 or 5 cigarettes here, and I pulled one out, and I couldn't do it. I said, you just went through hell for 21 days. Don't do it. It took me, like I said, about 6 months to overcome this. Let me tell you about habits. I don't know who wrote this article. It was a lady, and it was years ago, but it made complete sense to me. If you want to change a habit, you need to be patient, and it takes willpower to do it. That's what I'm talking about. They all work together. The more you can settle yourself in the habits using willpower and vice versa, you're going to be more successful at everything you do. She said it takes between 14 and 291 days to change a habit. It depends on what you're trying to change. If you want to change the way you drive to work in the morning, probably 2 weeks to get out of that habit of driving that way. The way you get dressed in the morning, I just want you to know you get dressed, talking to the guys in here, I don't know how a lady gets dressed, but when men get dressed, they put on the same sock on the same foot every day. Left sock, left sock. You put on your pants and you put either the right leg at the first time. I mean, you do the same thing every day if you look at it. It's amazing the habits that we get into. And let me show you this exercise here. Just do this with me. This is how hard it is. Fold your arms for me. Just go ahead and fold your arms. Oh, that's nice. Okay, now look at them. Look at the way you did it. Unfold them. And fold them the other way. It's hard. You don't switch this. You always fold your arms the same way every single time. That's how hard it is. Now, could you change? If I said if you fold your arms the other way, you'll live longer. When you fold your arms, you do this. Oh, wait a second. How long would it? It would be weird. But that's, when I do this for a living, the hardest thing for me to do this is I can get people motivated initially, but when you leave, will you stay that way? Do you have the discipline to really pick something out and change? This is why New Year's resolutions don't work, because they have too many. I'm sure people have tried those. I'm going to lose weight, stop smoking, exercise 5 days a week, pay off some credit cards, go on a big cruise, and when we go to the health club, Planet Fitness, it's packed. I told my wife, just wait till middle of February. It'll thin out a little bit. We just don't stick with the things that we really need to do to get some things done. Habits are, most of what you do are good habits, some are bad habits, but it absolutely matters what you do. And then this next one here I have for you, on the, right here, a plan for failure. You're going to fail. When people do something and fail, they just stop. If you fail, just get back on the horse and keep trying. There's a diet I heard about, which sounds good to me, that for 6 days you diet, and for 1 day you can eat whatever you want all day. But the next day you go right back on it. If you set some goals for a year and you don't hit your goals, do you just throw them away? No, you get back on the horse. If you are, say, for example, Alcoholics Anonymous, and you have 60-day coin, you went 60 days without a drink, and you break down and have a drink the next day, do you go all the way back? You shouldn't. You should just start back on a new streak. You're going to fail sometimes. It's not a big deal. It's how you cope with it. It's learning how to overcome things time and time again. And then the last one is bright line specific goals, things you really want, things you're shooting for in life. And you've all heard of SMART goals before, I know. Most of you have. Can anybody tell me what the letters stand for? S? Specific. M? A? Attainable. T, R? Realistic or relevant. Relevant is kind of the new one now. Do you really want to do it? And then T is time bound. But you have to have some goals for yourself. I tell people to have goals. In 4 areas of life. You decide what they are. My wife and I set goals at the end of every year for the coming year. She has things she wants to do. I have things I want to do. These are personal goals for our family. We work and negotiate on the goals. But the 4 areas you should have goals for, it's just not on the screen, as I call spiritual/value goals, things bigger than you. It might be donating your time somewhere, working at a Habitat for Humanity house, might be going back to church or going to a small group, something like that. It's something bigger than you. Then you have family/relationship goals. These are things that you want to do with your family, spending more time with your children, going on vacation, doing more things around the house, spending more time. A lot of married couples have a date night, whatever that's the case is going to be. But it's family/relationship. Then you have health/physical goals. That could be exercising. A lot of people want to do that. Do you know how much you're supposed to exercise? What do the doctors say? Does anybody exercise? I have some people I know that exercise 7 days a week. I think, in my opinion, that's crazy. You got to help heal your body. This is what my doctor told me. Because I told him I travel. It's hard for me to exercise. I don't want to get up early in the morning and do it. I don't have the willpower late in the day to do it. He said, if all you do is just walk 2 miles 5 days a week, briskly, so you sweat a little bit, He said that's all you really need to do. If you don't do it at all, do it 2 days a week. If you do it 2 days a week, do it 3 days a week. But set yourself some health and physical goals. And then the last one is career and financial goals. Setting some things for yourself in the future. What are you learning to change your career? Do you want to climb the ladder somewhere? Do you want to become debt-free? Do you need a plan to do that? You have investments, those sort of things. But you need to set some goals, and then what I like to teach people is every day you should make a to-do list of things you want to do. Plan your day. You should plan tomorrow, today. Every single day before you go to bed, just make a list of something you want to try to do tomorrow. It's amazing to me how many people don't write things down and don't have lists to do things, and their mind just gets confused, full of all these different things they want to do, rather than to try to get it done. And if you don't get everything done that day, then you put those things on the next day and you get it done. And then you prioritize. This is a good one. I get this request a lot from people. How do you prioritize? How do you decide what to do first? Here's what I tell people. Have you ever been overloaded with things to do and you can't decide what to do next? I don't know which way to go next. This is what I want you to think about. Here's the order that I put them in. The first one is importance, the thing that you have to do. How important is it? Even if it's at work, I'm talking about things for work too. How important is it? Who is it for, and how does it impact your job? Is it for your boss? Do you do something for your boss? Do you do something for your boss automatically first? You shouldn't. You shouldn't automatically do it. You should ask them questions and see do they really need it right now? If somebody says jump, do you say how high, or do you say, well, what are you talking about exactly? I need to figure out how important it is. The second thing I think about is, with prioritizing, is the deadline. When's it due? Does that take precedence over importance sometimes? Maybe it does. The third thing I talk about is how much time does it take to do? How much time do I have? Is it something that's going to take me 5 hours? Do I start today, or do I wait till I have 5 hours? Or kind of get a little bit done on it today? And the fourth one is resources. Do I have people? And do I have help to get it done? Computers to help me get it done? And the fifth one that I have is just personal preference. I mean, have you ever had something before? You have 3 people asking for something right now, and no matter what you do, you're going to make 2 people mad? Then just do the one you want. But it's learning how to prioritize your life. Get your life in order so that you can take the time to work on your willpower and work on your self-discipline. And then don't multitask time management-wise. There's no such thing as multitasking. Did you know this? Nobody can multitask. Even women can't multitask. Nobody can do 2 mental things at the same time. It's learning how to stay focused on one thing. Do you remember the old days when you used to get in trouble when you talked on the phone in your car, driving your car? Is that against the law now or not? Can you talk on your phone and hold it in the car? And that's okay, that's fine, but I found even hands-free, have you noticed even hands-free, when you're driving your car in a serious phone call, it's hard to pay attention to the traffic if you're in the middle of a serious phone call on the phone. So those are the things that you have to think. That's multitasking. I've had to pull over on the side of the road before to finish my phone call, or I was going to have a wreck, or I told somebody I'll call them back because I'm driving to the airport, something like that. But it's kind of fascinating. And then don't procrastinate. Procrastination. The bad news is everybody procrastinates. The good news is we don't do it on everything. If you procrastinate, and this goes right along with self-discipline and willpower, if you procrastinate, there's 3 things that you can do to overcome procrastination. The first one is just admit that you hate to do it. I just hate to do it. People right now are procrastinating on their taxes. They could start their taxes now, and they're not. The key to overcoming anything like that is just admit you don't like to do it. I just don't like to do it. The second thing is you work in small steps. You don't have to do the whole thing right now. You can do it for 15 minutes. You can do it for 30 minutes. When I start my taxes on February the 1st. I actually start in January by making a list of my deductions. I get my credit card receipts. It's pretty much all credit cards now. Nobody really writes many checks anymore. I sit down and watch some TV for 30 minutes or an hour and just get my deductions out. I don't want to do it all in one night. I do a little bit each time. so that by the end of February, I actually have everything ready to turn in the accountant to get my taxes done, and then I send them in April. But it's learning how to overcome procrastination. So the first one is admit you don't like to do it. The second one is work in small steps. And the third one is what the Nike commercial says, which is what? Just do it. You just get started. I mean, you don't have to do everything. Just get started. It's that mind over matter thing. It's just the habit of willpowers. They talked about in that book, they talked about Michael Phelps. Probably, I think he's more gold medals than any male swimmer in any Olympics. I don't know how many he has, 20 or something like that. And he used to get up at 4:30 in the morning, and he hated to practice swimming. He hated it. It was cold outside. It was in wintertime. His alarm would go off at 4:30 in the morning, and automatically, without even thinking, yes, no, like it, don't like it, he just put on his clothes and either rode his bike to the pool or called a cab or probably in an Uber now and went to the pool and just swam for as long as he was going to do it. He just did it automatically. He didn't even think about it. That's what you're trying to do with the habits that you have and the willpower, is make it so that you don't even have to think about it. You just do it. I'm losing weight. I'm changing my eating habits. I'm going to lose 15 pounds. I'm going to keep my calories below 2,000 calories a day. I'm not going to eat anything unless I can see how many calories are in it. And you just do it. And just realize over the course of time that hungry feeling will go away and you'll get used to not eating as much. That's the important thing about all this stuff, what we're doing here today. And I want to give you a couple more books to go with here too, if I could. There's 3 more books I would like you to think about reading. I'm going to promise you something with these 4 books. In the last year, I coach about 40 people a month right now. In the last year, I've helped 2 people become general managers at cooperatives that were CFOs. Reading these books, these 4 books that I'm talking about. The first one, The Power of Habit, and then these 3 books right here. Read the books, use the books, and let's talk about it when we coach every single month. I've helped 2 accountants become CFOs, and one gentleman got a job, wasn't supervising people, got a job with another cooperative down in Texas, running the operations department, all by following this kind of stuff right here. It's not me, it's the knowledge that's in these. This first one, Servant Leadership in Action, this is probably the most popular book that's out there right now. 10 years ago, there were, on Amazon.com, there were 8 books on servant leadership, and today there's over 5,000 just 10 years later. This is a book by Kenneth Blanchard and Renee Broadwell on servant leadership. There's 43 essays in this book. From a quarter of them are from pastors talking about the leadership of Jesus Christ. The other 3/4 are businessmen and women talking about aspects of how servant leadership has helped their business and their career. Then you have the leadership and self-deception. That's probably one of my favorite ones. It's written by the Arbinger Institute. You're either in the box or out of the box. It's about relationships and how you get along with people, whether or not you're selfish, how you're treating people like people or not. And then, of course, How to Win Friends and Influence People is one just about everybody's heard about. It was written in 1937. It's the most popular business book in the United States of America. And the only other book that's sold more than that is the Bible. And it's amazing how many people haven't read it yet, but I read it. I've read it several times, but I also just get the book out and read the highlights of it sometimes. But it's learning that knowledge. You know, this is what I like to ask people, is if you're not doing things like you're doing today or yesterday and today and learning something new, if you're not reading, attending seminars, or listening to things, where are you getting your knowledge to move forward the 21st century? If you're not entertaining things to make yourself better and stronger, if you're the same person a year from now that you are today, you're behind in the world right now. You have somebody that's going to talk, Micah's going to talk about AI later on this morning. That's something that really turns a lot of people off, but that's just the world we're in right now. You think about when the computers first came out in the 1970s, late 1970s. Desktops came in the early 80s. Laptops came around that time. Think about how fast computers have absorbed our lives. Think about all the things we've adapted to technologically over our years. There's a lady called Faith Popcorn. She's a futurist. I don't know what she's doing lately. Used to read a lot of her stuff a few years back. But she wrote a book called Clicking, and in that book she She talked about how fast that our technology is changing our world, and this was 15 or more years ago. Imagine what's happening right now. The phrase that she uses, we're halfway through the chessboard. That's the phrase she used. So she told a story about a knight that saved a king's daughter from a fire-breathing dragon. And in appreciation, the king offered the knight his weight in gold, 185 pounds of gold. And the knight thought about it and said, no, I don't want that. And the king said, well, what do you want? And the knight said, I want a grain of rice, but for every square on a chessboard, I want you to double it. There's 64 squares on a chessboard. The king said, all right, grain of rice, 64 squares. Okay, how bad could that be? So you have 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, yada, yada, yada. On the 32nd square alone was 4.3 billion grains of rice. If you take the total on every square, it comes to 16.4 quadrillion grains of rice, which would probably fill up 3 of this hotel, worth well over 185 pounds of gold. She said technologically, now keep in mind, this was 15 years ago, it's even faster now. You're only halfway through the chessboard right now. It's going to keep doubling. She said, look back on your life for 3 years and look forward 3 years. It's going to be like looking forward 9 years. That's the value of challenging yourself to do new things, to be stronger, develop some good habits, be strong with willpower, be smart, learn new things, read books. And now with Audible.com, I don't have any stock in it, but it's easier, I must admit, driving in a car, exercising, sitting on my computer while I'm working on something. I can be playing a tape and learning something to become better at what I do. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you to keep putting stuff in your head. And then the other thing I've got here is, hold on, let me see, this. And I got one more thing I want to do for you here first. I want you to listen to this.
You're pushing, and you're pushing, and you're pushing, and you're pushing, and you're doing everything right. I'm not coach right now. I'm your conscience. You're in a fight between will and skill. I say will first because that's where you are. You locked and loaded with skill. You practicing every day. You putting in your work. You buying everything. You making an investment. You living your dream. You walking like your dream. You surrounding yourself around your dream. You got mentors, everything. You putting your work in. You got your skill. Now it's a test of your will. It's a mindset thing you in right now. It's a mindset thing because your challenge ain't moving. Your mountain is not moving. You don't feel like you're making any progress. You're not physically moving when you see everything else around you and other people around you moving. You're not making progress. You're in the test of your will right now because life says it has a little more test for you. You can look at your challenge with skill, and it will see it just as that, a challenge, or you can look at your challenge with will and see it as much.
That's what it's all about, folks. It's about being stronger, being smarter, getting things done, improving yourself, learning, leading, and you're all in leadership positions right here, but not being satisfied, staying exactly where you are. Make your mind stronger to help other people, to help your family, to help yourself, to be disciplined. Willpower is the key to success, whatever success is. Like I said, the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or dream. And let me finish with a story. In 2009, does anybody here remember 2008, what a disaster that was? I don't think it affected as many cooperatives like it did other businesses that are out there. I mean, if you're in the seminar business and you're laying off 10,000 people a month or whatever it is, you're not calling people to speak for you. It was, this is an unusual business to be in. When the Gulf War started in 2003, I had a bunch of contracts with the military. I lost everything there. 2008, lost it all there. When COVID started, lost it all there. You just can't curl up in a fetal position. You understand that? You have to keep trying. You have to keep working on things. I'm not just going to give up. But in 2009, going after the holidays, a little depressed, Jack Canfield was going to be speaking at an event in Orlando, Florida. I live in St. Augustine, which is about 2 hours north of that on the Atlantic coast. And I went down. That's where I met him. They had a cocktail party the night before, and that's when he told me about the two-thirds of the people have low self-esteem. I'll never forget that. That just blew me away. It made complete sense. I mean, if you work with people that talk about people behind their backs, have you ever worked with somebody that withholds information because knowledge is power? They don't want you to know what they know. Just very insecure. They spread rumors. They like to stir up trouble all the time. But that day when he spoke to about a room about this size, actually, it was about 200 or 300 people. I sat on the second row on that side. I always believe on sitting up front. And he was here on the stage speaking for 2 hours nonstop. And when he was done, he picked out 3 $100 bills and held them in his hand and said, I'm going to give this money away. Who wants this? Out of 300 people, 200 people, let's say 200 people, 195 people raised their hands. They started laughing. A couple people faked like they're going to take it out of his hand. But a lady on the 5th row popped up out of her seat immediately and walked to the front. She was walking fast. I thought she had to go to the bathroom. We had been there for 2 straight hours. I was sitting over here, and let me tell you something. Mr. Motivational Speaker, the thought to get up and get the money didn't even cross my mind. I didn't even think about it. She got up, walked to the front, took a left turn and started walking to Jack Canfield. She got up on the stage, and he's holding the money like this. And she gets up on the stage. She walks up like this. Looked at him. Looked at the money. Looked at us. Looked at him. Looked at the money. Looked at us. Shrugged. Reached up. Pulled his arm down. Took the $300 out of his hand and went sat back down in her seat without saying a word. And the room went wild, because that's what he meant. In other words, if you want to get ahead in life, what do you have to do? Get up off it and go do something. I was freaked out that fall, didn't know what to do. I was waiting for the economy to change for me. And what that caused me to do is go back and be more aggressive. That's when, 2009 is when I really got into the co-op world big. All these different states, Texas, Alabama, in Virginia. Florida's kind of a weird state co-op-wise. But I went out and started working on these different programs with folks. And this is what he said. And he walked out to a standing ovation. He said, there's 3 kinds of people in this room right now. The kind of people that make it happen, the kind of people that watch it happen, or the people in the audience wondering, what just happened? And that made me talk to myself. Does anybody here talk to themselves? I talk to myself out loud. I mean, I wear earbuds so people think I'm on the phone. I talk to myself out loud so much. But I talked to myself for 2 hours and 15 minutes all the way back to St. Augustine, Florida, and took money out of my savings, retirement, redid my website, changed my whole strategy, spent hours on the phone, changed my seminars, changed my workbooks. I did it again after COVID, did the same thing after COVID, because you can't just give up. So let me just end with this. And if anybody would like to contact me, I'll put my information up there for you. If you need any advice on something, if you want to ask how to move ahead in life, in business, because of what I said, feel free to call. It doesn't cost you anything to call me and ask questions. Like I said, I coach about 40 people a month, some more serious about it than others. But this is what I want to do. I have $100 right here I want to give away. Who wants this money? Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.